Today we're going to have a look at two types of defects that can occur with 8mm video cassettes in particular, though these problems might occur with other tape formats too. First we'll look at a mould problem on badly stored tapes, and then something more unusual which can happen due to a defective player. Now for the mouldy tapes, we first need to don our personal protective equipment. Seriously, when I have a mouldy tape out of the cassette, face masks are important because a mould may be carcinogenic. Here we have two 8mm tapes that have come in from the same customer. Now, they've probably been badly stored, such as in a loft or a garage, and you can see white or grey flecks on the spools of the tapes. This is mould. Now, on a thicker formulation of tape, such as VHS or beta, this wouldn't be too much of a problem because it is usually confined just to the top and bottom edges of the tape. In extreme cases it can affect the whole of the magnetic medium, but very often it's only on the top and bottom, and all you need to do is actually just play the tape through a machine and it will pull the mould off as it runs through the machine. I would then use only a sacrificial machine for that, and I would clean it out later. But you can't do that trick with 8mm tapes because the actual tape inside is too thin. And what will happen if you try to play this tape is this mould glues the tape together on the spool. As a result, it will start a very distinctive snap. It will snap from one end of the tape through to the other, and this tape, as you can see, has snapped. So we'll open this one up and we'll take a look at that distinctive snap effect. Now, just repairing this tape isn't going to get us anywhere, because if we repair that snap, we splice it, as soon as we put the tape back in the machine, it will snap again. So we actually have to do a demoulding process. Here we go. Let's have a look at how this tape is snapped. You can see there, it's not a clean break through the middle. That tape has snapped from the top where the mould was on this particular spool through to the bottom as the tape was attempted to be played in the machine. Not my machine, I should say. This came from the customer like this. And the other side is glued on. So on this spool we'll find the glued up part of the tape is at the very top, and we need to ease that off. Right, I've cleared that piece of tape off the spool, and you can see it's sticking. As I try to peel it off, it's sticking continuously. Really is quite bad. I can try to pull some tape off cleanly, and it sounds like adhesive tape. Okay. So in the first instance I will splice this tape back together, and then we'll have to put this through a demoulding process. Okay. So that's a high quality join. Now one of the tricks we can do, which can help a bit in some cases, is to give the tape a pull and allow some of the slack to be pulled out of the tape. And what can happen, if you're lucky, is these patches of mould will develop a swirling pattern, which means that you're pulling the mould, the tape around, and the mould is ungluing and starting to follow the tape round. However, if you're less lucky, it will just stay in great big clumps, and if you're really unlucky, you'll snap the tape. So care with this. Let's see what happens. Okay. I can see that some parts of the tape did move and some parts didn't. So there are parts of this tape which have now become unstuck, and there are other parts of the tape that are still very much stuck. So I need to put this through a demoulding process. And the way I'm going to do this is go from this end to here, clear that one off, and then all the way back through the tape on a piece of equipment that I've built. It doesn't look very pretty, but it does the job. Let's go and see us demould this tape. Have you got your equipment ready, Scott?
Yes.
What about you, Alex? Oh, there's always somebody who takes it too far. Here is my rather Heath Robinson affair, which is used for clearing mould from videotapes, in this case 8mm ones. So this is the first tape, and the way I've elected to do this is to run it through to the short amount of tape first and then flip it over and run it the other way. Now this motor here is from a V2000 video recorder from Philips, and it's a wonderful DC motor that I can control very precisely using a power supply, which I'm afraid is off screen and I'm not easily going to be able to get it on the screen, but there's a power supply here and I can run this up to, amazingly now for example, that's turning on 200 millivolts. It's the sort of area we need to be talking so that we can clear the mould from these tapes without snapping them. And I've also added a switch here so I can flip the polarity. So in this case I want to run this way. I'll just switch that off and I'll line this up. Now just to let you know a little bit more about this, this part used to be a Betamax tape rewinder. I'm just using it in this case just as a spool, and this is our V2000 motor. And I'm not even using the spool really. What's happening here is I have a reel of sticky tape of all things. And you might think, well, why am I doing this? Well, the reel of sticky tape provides some friction resistance there, just the right amount, that I can run this tape and it will peel the mould off. And if it comes to a piece of mould that's too thick that it can't peel off, it'll stop. There we go. And that motor now is running at 200 millivolts. And you can hear the noise. So it's a slow process. I trust this rig enough that I can usually go out and leave that and come back and it will have completed winding it to the end and stop, and it won't snap the tape. I'm not saying it never snaps the tape. Okay, now it's hit a piece of mould that's too thick. If I just applied more voltage it would tear the tape, probably. I think I'll increase the voltage just a tiny bit now, up to 300 millivolts. I'm being very careful not to allow the tape to snap. So you can see what a slow process this is. Sometimes I alter the arrangement here to provide more load if we're having a problem with an extremely mouldy tape, and the extra torque will clear the mould if you get it just right. And it's important that it's very, very straight across here. If you have an angle, then it's pulling on one side or the other of the tape and there's more chance of a snap. Okay, we've got to the end of the tape. Now let's switch off the power supply and we'll go the other way with this spool on reverse polarity. Now of course the first few minutes of this tape have been done, so I can accelerate this slightly. Now one of the things about this is the tape is wound on with much less tension than would normally be done when it's in a camcorder or a player of some sort. So I do wind the tape through several times on a tape rewinder before loading this into a player. Now the exact voltage I use and the load I place on this tape will vary from one tape to another. So this is the other one I have here, and running this in my fingers I can feel that tape peeling off. So I mean, you could do that by hand, but imagine how long it would take. There was a time I used to do that now and then, but it's just impractical. You need a machine to help. This may not be any quicker, but it's less manual. So that's effectively what I'm doing here. Applying, and there's a knack to it. You apply just the right amount of holding tension on the spool as you peel off the mould. It's not something I can even describe how I know how much tension to apply. I just do, having been playing with these mouldy tapes for a long time. TechMoan recently covered a Sony audio cassette rewinder model BE-A200. Here we have an equally rare device, a Sony BE-V8 winder and eraser for 8mm video cassettes. I have two of these, which are slightly modified. They're very handy for quickly getting to one end or the other of the 8mm tape, or to wipe a tape for secure disposal. These didn't sell very well because they were far too expensive when new.
Yay!
Press the button.
Good.
Not that button.
I done it.
Here's another 8mm tape that's been sent to me this week from another customer, and they said it's broken and needs repair. Well, yes, I'd go along with that, but I think there's a bigger problem with this tape. I don't know if you can see there the two spools, but this one here is almost full, and this one here is over half full. Now how can that be? Well, there's two scenarios I can think of where you can finish up with too much tape. Apart from crazy things like somebody having done some fancy splicing, the most likely scenarios are the tape has been submerged in water and is crinkled up and is therefore taking up too much space. I don't think that's the case here. Looking at that tape, it appears to be fairly clean at the top, but there's something a bit unhappy going on here. So I think I know the problem. Let's have a closer look at the tape. Well, it's crumpled, but I think there may be more to it. I'm going to release the brake there, the screwdriver, and I'm going to pull some more tape through. Yes. This tape has what I call fold over. So what's happened is it's been played on a defective camcorder at some point, and if you look closely there, you'll see there's a crease at the bottom of the tape where the bottom couple of millimeters or so have been folded in. Now, if that was just a few centimeters, you could probably unfurl that with your hand and flatten it out, and you might be okay. But it's not. It's a lot of tape. You'll never get this straightened out. So the sensible thing to do would be write off the entire tape and say to the customer, I'm sorry, it can't be done. But maybe we can do slightly better than that. Looking at this, the take-up spool looks rougher than the supply spool. So I think the damage may be limited to the first 10 minutes of the tape, which is on this spool, and maybe if I pull some more through from the supply spool, maybe that crease will stop. Depends how much of the tape was damaged by the customer's camcorder way back when. I can pull some through, but if it gets too much I'll have to put it onto my rig upstairs, which can wind these tapes. Ah, is it? Yes, yes. Right, now we're getting somewhere. So all of this tape will play okay up to the point there where the camcorder started chewing it, almost certainly due to a defective pinch roller. So all I need to do is take this spool out, discard it, and splice this piece of good tape onto an empty spool, which I can get from a scrap tape. And then all but these few minutes here will be playable. So you can see there's a few minutes being used up on the supply spool, probably 10-15 minutes at most, and all of the rest of the tape is good. This material here, I'm afraid, is lost. There's pretty much no chance of ever straightening that out, so we'll have to discard that. But at least this way we can recover 80 or 90% of the tape for the customer. So here now I have fitted a take-up spool from a scrap Hi8 tape. We'll load that into the cassette. So we've lost that much recording from the start of the tape. Let's hope that this tape has actually got recordings on it for the rest of it. It looks from the ridges in the tape as though it does have recordings up until well gone halfway through the tape. So though we've lost some content which has got screwed up by a faulty camcorder, we've recovered a great deal of good content, hopefully. So there we have it. Some methods for recovering content from tapes which many transfer businesses would give up on. I hope you've learned something in today's video. Please like, share and above all subscribe so I will continue to make YouTube videos about audio and video technology. Bye for now.